as recording in progress, as well as we do video, website development, social media, content marketing, and basically anything that you would need from a full service digital agency. What we're really talking about today is marketing strategy and readiness for working with vendors. As a vendor, it's not a thing that we all like to talk about all of the time, but not everything goes very well. And sometimes as a vendor, you can see kind of where it could have gone a little bit better and what we can do as a vendor to make everything work better for our clients, but also maybe see some trends in the way that clients are kind of set up and organized that if they were set up and organized a little bit differently, could make everything much more smooth for them. So what we're really talking about then today is that readiness, strategic marketing planning. I've been lucky enough and very grateful for the experiences I've had helping several organizations, dozens of them, with strategic marketing planning in a variety of industries, including manufacturing. And so what I'm going to talk about today is really, let me share my screen. Because the last time I did this, I didn't share my screen fast enough and I just jumped in and then somebody had to interrupt me. What we're really talking about today is marketing allocation, how it's used, and is it being used to its best advantage? So one of the things that I think surprises a lot of people is how much like industry-wide people put into marketing. So I look specifically for manufacturers, but this is pretty cognizant or pretty replicated around the industry, unless it's something that's super consumer focused. But in B2B, this is pretty common. An average manufacturer's marketing allocation pre-COVID was just about 3% of sales. Post-COVID, it's increased dramatically. That may level out a little bit, but from an industry perspective, manufacturing was a little bit low in terms of its marketing allocation to revenue percentage. And what typically can happen then is that because of that lower allocation, there isn't enough budget, and maybe there doesn't need to be, for an entire marketing team. And so what ends up happening is that smaller manufacturers, mid-sized manufacturers, often combine sales and marketing functions in a leadership perspective, with the person in that role typically having more of a sales focus. And then what ends up happening is that marketing takes the back burner, and usually then a person who executes on a marketing strategy, so rather than, is somebody that has another role, and is often pulled in multiple directions. And as we all know, when we're asked to prioritize 4 things at once, 1 or 2 of those things will take immediate precedence and other things kind of get pushed to the back burner. So this isn't to say that anybody's doing anything wrong, but there are systemic things that I've seen in kind of trends in the manufacturing industry, to kind of point out kind of where the lost opportunity is from a marketing perspective. So that means, though, that a lot of manufacturers rely on multiple vendors for daily marketing services. And because the budget is so limited, the question is, are we getting enough bang for our buck? What is the impact of this? So marketing functions that are not specifically hired for. So if the business itself or the organization itself doesn't have like a reason to say that purpose, we want to hire somebody for that purpose, it often just gets ignored because the way that all clients hire vendors is to say, hey, vendor, I would like this thing. And then the vendor says, okay, great. Would you also like this or this or this? No? Okay, here's that thing. And so when we don't know what to ask for, we don't know what we're missing. And that's kind of the point here. Marketing strategy is often confused for sales strategy. They're intertwined, absolutely and definitely, but they are not the same thing. Vendors are hired for their tactics without necessarily understanding how they individually fit into the organization's overall strategy, if the organization has one. And then because of that, vendors siloed are less effective, and then are changed very frequently. Work gets redone, and now all of a sudden it's a really inefficient system. So all of these kinds of things cascade out of that, out of those kind of systemic challenges that we talked about. So let's just like talk really quick about what's marketing strategy. And so when I say like marketing strategy often gets confused with sales strategy, there is a lot of crossover, but what people commonly think of as marketing strategy is usually things like promotion schedules, maybe advertising. They don't really, I think, having sat down and done annual strategic marketing plans with several organizations, I think people are often surprised by the conversations that we have. So here are the elements that I would say fit into an annual marketing plan. It's quite a long list. I'll be talking about these things more individually. So you might want to screenshot it, but these things would be something that we would definitely recommend discussing annually among leadership and marketing leadership. And the reason is different for kind of each one of these. So we're going to walk through those individually. But a lot of times when I show this list, people really focus on like the advertising schedule or what channels they're going to market on. They don't necessarily step back into kind of these overall high-arching questions. So one of the first ones is the target audience and unique selling proposition. When I've sat down, everybody that I talk to in a business says, well, we know our target audience. We know, we know why we're unique or what we do better than our competitors or our unique selling propositions. But every time I've sat down with a group or a team to discuss this at a single organization, every individual in that group has a completely different answer for these questions. And so annual alignment on who are we talking to, who is our target audience, what are we talking about, what is our unique selling proposition, is incredibly important as a foundation to the rest of the marketing tools. Because otherwise what happens is somebody comes to, like, let's say one person thinks their target audience is X and another person thinks their target audience is Y, but they never have that conversation. And all of a sudden, the person who thinks it's X sees a trade publication that they think would be great, wants to put an ad in it that talks about a unique selling proposition, brings it to person Y, and person Y says, why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense for us. And now all of a sudden, because they haven't had this larger conversation, there's this really kind of misstep and misunderstanding. And what tends to happen on teams is that, we want to kind of allocate where we want, and then things to end up duplicated. And maybe if everybody's not on the same page, things get spent that shouldn't be. So annual alignment on this is absolutely essential. Pricing and positioning is another one that I think we all kind of think we know pretty inherently, but this actually changes very, very, very quickly, especially since COVID. The competitive landscape is completely different. Circumstances have changed. Pricing has changed dramatically. And do our value propositions, if we are a value provider, if we are a provider that seeks to provide fast, efficient service at a lower price point than our competitors, do our customers know that? Or if we are a high-end boutique provider, if we are a highly customized boutique provider that is priced appropriately for a high-end boutique provider that's highly customized, do our customers know that? Has our pricing kept up with the industry, with the competition, or is it all kind of muddled together because we, haven't talked about this in 5 years or 3 years, or since we did that annual plan at a retreat in 2016. So these are really conversations around positioning a business or an organization intentionally. And sometimes these conversations are go very quickly because people are aligned, and sometimes they last for hours because people are not. And so all of a sudden, just making sure that these are part of the plan ensures that you're checking on the alignment of these. Distribution channels is another one. New distribution channels open all the time. And maybe you've rearranged the way that you've done your I don't know, maybe you've rearranged the way that you've done your sales network, or maybe there are new online opportunities, new partners that you've signed with, new white label opportunities, new trade show opportunities, and there might be distribution channels for your product or your services that you just hadn't thought of before. So again, talking about how you deliver your product or your services and through how that happens is really an important conversation foundationally, because all of a sudden, if you decide that you're going to open up a new market, it completely changes your marketing strategy, and demand, and has higher demands on your budget. A promotion and communication schedule. Now, most manufacturers aren't going to have a buy one, get one off, buy one, get one free shoe sale, right? But a communication schedule is absolutely essential. So what are you going to talk about in your channels? How does it fit with your customer's buy cycle? How does it fit with your average customer's industry cycle? All of those things are definitely things to make sure that you're having an annual touch base on, and making decisions. And this could be a quarterly conversation. This could be something that's like, well, this quarter we're going to talk about this season we're going to talk about this. This doesn't have to be, this, like, every 52 weeks of the year we're going to talk about these super specific things. This is really, when we're talking about an annual plan, we're really talking about creating the kind of framework for all of the decisions that will get made throughout the year. And so if you know that you've got a new product launching in October, having that in your communication schedule to do pre-launch things in July, it gets you prepared for that, and it makes sure that you're going to start working on that in March when you need to be. These are the things that people typically think of when they think about a marketing strategy or a marketing plan. Materials production, meaning how many brochures do I need? Do I need to build a new website? Do I need to order more swag? Marketing channels. Are we going to do LinkedIn? Are we going to do the web? Are we going to do that trade show this year? The advertising schedule, these 5 publications and 3 email blasts that we do that are industry specific. Are we going to do those again this year? This is this is what people usually think of when they think about a marketing plan. But without that overarching strategy, what ends up happening almost invariably is that people simply repeat whatever they did the year before. So the budget, the decisions, all of those things are pre-made, and people don't necessarily ask questions about the efficacy or the efficiency of those things, because we don't necessarily know whether our target audience has changed, whether our unique selling propositions are any different, whether there's something new in our pricing competition landscape to pay attention to. Because we haven't had those conversations, if we haven't done an overall strategy, then there's no reason to change anything we did last year. And what happens is then people end up just kind of recycling things and then slowly dwindling their marketing over time without really understanding why it's not working anymore. Very often overlooked. And again, this is kind of where there's a lot of crossover between the marketing strategy and the sales strategy, is that conversion piece and that partner piece. Really thinking about, there's 2 different ways to increase revenue in a business, right? You can get new customers, or you can get your current customers to deepen their relationship with you and spend more. So these kinds of conversations are usually about that second thing. How do we look at our current partners and say what's working well for us, what's not? How do we look at maybe our distributors and who's doing really well? What assets do they have? What assets do they need? Is our strategy working there? And how do we look at that conversion of lead to sale and say, how do we make that conversion better? What does the sales team need to support what they're doing, and those assets and things? And so having conversations around that between marketing and sales is really, really important, and making sure that those are all part of the rest of the strategy. This is a hugely overlooked conversation, and it's come up a lot in the last couple of years as more and more people have become cognizant of the need to really, like, of how important their brand reputation is to employee recruitment. Retention strategy isn't necessarily retention of employees, although it can be, thinking about that kind of inside marketing and kind of culture conversation. But your reputation and your retention strategy is really about is your product, is your service delivering on the promises that your marketing has made? And the best marketing you can ever provide is a great experience. The best sales tool for you is a happy customer. We all know this, that it's easier to retain a customer than it is to gain a new one. We all absolutely know this. And yet we don't often put these things into our marketing strategies, and we don't often have conversations about how are we going to track our brand? Are we going to do surveys? Are we going to actively request testimonials? Are we going to write case studies this year? Are we going to send a crew out and do videos for happy customers that they can use and we can use? How are we going to impact our reputation? And what are people saying about us? What are people saying about us online? What do our reviews look like? What do our reviews look like for the public, for our customers? And what do the reviews look like for potential employees? What are they saying on Glassdoor? What are they saying on Indeed? All of these things are incredibly important and a huge part of our marketing strategy, and often very overlooked until there's an emergency. When it's an emergency or somebody says something or does something online, then it becomes a huge focus for everybody, but it's almost out of the blue, instead of being, managed and maintained and updated and nurtured as a part of the overall strategy. So that's when we talk about an annual marketing strategy. Those are kind of the elements that we talk about and why we talk about those specific elements. When I started and we talked about vendor readiness and potential for lost opportunity in our relationships because of the setups that we have in our organizations, the foundation of an annual plan is absolutely essential. And here's why. So let's make up a company. Let's say that company XYZ is a small manufacturer with 12 million in revenue and 15 full-time employees. So this is a fairly modest manufacturing. There's a leadership team, the CEO, the CFO, the COO. That's 3 people on the leadership team. The CEO is the head of sales, and the leadership team kind of collaborates on the marketing strategy with the CEO kind of as a final decision maker. There is a person that does marketing execution and vendor management, and that's the office manager. And that's kind of the setup. And this is very, very, very common. This is a common setup in manufacturing. It's a common setup in professional services, business to business professional services. It's very common in nonprofits. This is not an issue that's unique to the manufacturing or industry. This is something that's pretty ubiquitous at a company this size, very similar to conversations that might be had around HR for a company that doesn't have a dedicated HR person, but HR is a job function of somebody whose day-to-day is made up of largely other tasks. So let's break down the spend for this company, and you'll notice that this is absolutely nowhere near 3, 8, or even 3% of sales. But this is kind of how that company would, when we walk into a company as a vendor, we would typically see their marketing breakdown. 25% of that person's salary would be for marketing, because they're estimated to work on marketing about a fourth of the time. That vendor does 15 trade shows a year, $25,000 each. That's travel, booth rental, swag, printing, all of those kinds of costs that come along with trade shows. They have 3 vendors that they work with on an annual basis: a website management vendor that they pay $500 a month, so that's $6,000 a year. They have a graphic design and photo person, a photographer who does also graphic design, that does roughly $15,000 of work a year, or $1,200 a month. And they buy a lot of promotional products. They've got apparel for their employees, as well as print brochures and, pens and all the swag that they need for the trade shows. They spend about $30,000 a year on that. They also advertise in some trade publications, and that is done at 50. So again, I made all of this up, but this scenario is really based on years of working with organizations at this size and at this scale, and this is very, very common to what we see. So just to recap, we have a small manufacturer with 15 full-time employees, a leadership team that runs marketing and strategy collaboratively, if at all, and a marketing and a professional who does marketing as part of their overall job. But they're really there to execute on the strategy and manage the vendor relationships. So let's say that, let's posit a scenario. Let's say that the CEO goes to the office manager in March and says, we've got a new product launch. It's going to launch on April 15th. I'd like to get the new product on the website by April 15th. Really common, right? So they didn't have conversations in advance. Nobody knew when that product was going to launch. None of the vendors knew in advance because the office manager didn't know in advance. The leadership team probably knew about when it was going to launch, but didn't have a particular day and didn't share it until about a month out. So let's say we're about a month out from that product launching, and they want to put it on the website. Now, it doesn't take that long to put a product on a website, or does it? So what actually happens in this scenario is the CEO is going to talk to the office manager. Just follow along with me here. The CEO is going to say to the office manager, we need this new product on the website. The office manager is going to go to the website vendor and say, hey, we need this new product on the website. So the website vendor is going to turn around and say to the office manager, great, can I get the specs of the product, the photos of the product, and anything else that you want on the page? Excellent. So the office manager is now going to go to the graphic design and photo person and say, do you have those pictures of the product? And then probably also talk back with the CEO about the specs of the product. Then the photo person is going to go back to the office manager and say, which pictures do you need? I took about 50 of them. Do you want all of them? Do you want me to edit them all? How many hours do you want me to use? All of that kind of stuff. The office manager doesn't know what pictures that the website person is going to want. So she goes back to the website person and says, hey, website person, which pictures would you like? And how do you want those specs delivered? The website person then says to the office manager, that's awesome. We'll just do it like we did the other product pages where you've got like 3 pictures of the product overall and a few close-ups of details that you want highlighted. So the office manager then goes to the CEO and says, what details do we want highlighted on this product? Then the CEO says to the office manager, oh, just use your best judgment. That is the point that everything breaks down, because here's what's going to, I know it seems like everything's broken down already because this is a lot of emails back and forth, right? But this is the point that it breaks down, because now the office manager goes to the photo person and says, send me, 3 of the pictures that you like the best. The photo person gives them the office manager gives them to the website person delivers a mock-up of the page with all of the information that they have. The office manager looks at it, says, it looks great, looks like everything else, everything's spelled right. The pictures are of our product and not of a gorilla picking its nose, like everything's exactly well. And then the office manager goes to the CEO and the CEO says, why do those pictures not reflect the features that we put in our bullet points? And now everybody's mad. And it's taken 3 weeks to get there because of all of the back and forth. So this is very, very common, and nobody has done anything wrong in this scenario, right? The thing that broke down was way back here. The CEO wasn't clear with the office manager about what it was that he or she wanted on the product page. And the other thing, that's where it breaks down. So that's one issue. But the other thing that we're missing out here is that we have 2 vendor professionals at the table here who could add to the strategy of what's happening, who could add additional expertise to what's happening, but they don't have all of the information they need to do it. So what would happen if instead of this path, that same project looked like this? The CEO and the office manager sat down and went through the annual strategic plan. And in that annual strategic plan, it says we're going to have a product launch in late Q3 or early Q4. So now the office manager knows all of the things that they need to tell the website vendor, the photo vendor, and the graphic vendor, sends the strategic plan over to them and says, please review the annual plan. And I've marked the things that I'm going to ask you to do in that plan. And could you please let me know what you need to get those things done so we can prepare them in advance? Then there's an opportunity for the website vendor to mock up a page, list all of the requirements, maybe add to the project by recommending new keywords for the search strategy, right? The photo person can say, hey, if you're going to do a new product launch, get me out there on this day and this day so I can do some in-progress photos, and then maybe we'll make a slideshow video, because that would be a really cool thing for you to have for your YouTube channel or your website. And now we have a launch video that we can use. And now the graphic design person can look through the whole plan and say, well, this isn't marked for me, but wouldn't it be cool if we had some custom graphics for this product, or the product name had its own kind of like offshoot of the logo so that we could use that in the trade show in June. And so now those graphics can now go back to the photo person to be put onto the video, which then can go back to the web person to be put on the page. And because the information has come holistically, because the information has come with context, and because the information has come with plenty of advance notice, all of these vendors have the opportunity to shine. All of these vendors have the opportunity to provide the most value for what they're getting for their contracts. And all of these vendors have the opportunity to provide incredible value to their client. Now, they may have that opportunity in the midst of a month-long conversation as well, but when something has to happen and has a hard deadline, and you're just trying to get all of the basics in place, what typically happens is you don't take the time to step back. And that's common of everybody. We just don't take the time to step back and look at it and go, okay, well, how does this fit into the whole? Do we have time to really think about this? So this is the lost opportunity of that previous workflow. And as we think about what that actually means, is that your vendors have processes and internal systems as well. And the more you understand their system and work within it, the better a product you receive. The more complete and organized the request, the better the outcome. So just to hammer this home, all of these things that are highlighted here are value add that was not in the previous workflow, but you're paying exactly the same amount for both workflows. And the only difference between these two workflows is the organization internally. The vendor hasn't changed, their qualifications haven't changed, what you're paying them hasn't changed, but the internal organization has changed to the point that they're empowered to do their best work for you. So what do we mean when we say vendor readiness? What does that really, really mean? So the first thing it means is to clarify expectations and to be really, really clear about what it is you're asking for from your vendors. Now, the way that we talk about this makes it seem like there's like one right answer to something, but there's not. You need to decide, right? As an organization, you need to decide where your priorities are. So most, if not all, people in any sort of marketing or creative work have seen a version of this. It's a Venn diagram that shows good quality, fast timelines, and inexpensive work. And basically the idea here is that you get to pick two of these. You can't have all three. All three, that's where the glitter unicorn, that the glitter unicorn lives in the middle here. So really, if you prioritize that you want it good and you want it done quickly, if you want very high quality work done very, very well, you're going to pay for it, and you're going to pay a lot for it, because those are the two things that are most in demand. If you want very high quality work done very inexpensively, it's going to come at the cost of time. Time versus money, right? Those are the two resources we have. And so that will come very slowly. You'll be at the end of the list, and things that you think take 15 minutes will probably take a month. When you want something very, very quickly and very inexpensively, you need to expect that it's not going to be a very high quality. And there are reasons to choose this. There are absolutely reasons to choose this. the vendors and the partners that you have, when you clarify your expectations on this, they can decide whether they're interested in working with you and the expectations that you have. When you expect all three, you're in danger, because when a vendor tries to provide all three, they're in danger, right? So vendors will have, and it kind of goes back to that pricing and positioning conversation, right? Your vendors, just like you, will have positioned themselves. So they will have, and some vendors try to do combinations of this that are different for different clients. So if you have maybe vendors with like tiered packages, right? Then one of those packages will be the quick and inexpensive. One of them will be the fast and good. One of them will be the good and inexpensive, right? But when you clarify your expectations around these three things and say, this is our two, we value these two things, your vendor partner can then say, yes, we value those things as well, or no, we're not set up to work that way. As an example, at BadCat, one of the biggest mistakes I made when I started the business was trying to be all things to all people. I think that's really common when people start businesses. But over time, what I've discovered is that for our employees' sake, if we're unwilling to sacrifice the quality of what we do, they are unwilling. They want to be very proud of what they do. And so that means that we're not going to be a good partner for people who want fast and inexpensive work. It's just not our wheelhouse. And that's because the pride that the team takes in what they do is such that they're unwilling to do it down and dirty. They're just unwilling to cut corners. And believe me, I fought that pretty fast because I wanted cheap options, right? But the point is that that's something that we're just not willing. It's in our core values and we're just not willing to do it. And anytime we have tried, we have failed. We've disappointed our customers and we have failed. So knowing who we are helps us understand the partnerships that we're going to succeed the best at and the people that we're going to be the best partner for. So when you know what your expectations are and are very transparent about them, then your vendor can be transparent as well. That transparency is just one of the things that you provide. You're also providing time, your time and attention to the project. So your organization, your assets that come in, your all of those things are the time and attention to the project. So that means that if you've got 4 people that are reviewing a project that a vendor has done from you, you're providing that organization of getting their feedback, collating it, putting it together, and then providing it in one voice to the vendor. Otherwise, what happens is the vendor gets conflicting information and doesn't know where to go next, right? And so they pick something and it's invariably the wrong thing. Your raw resources, images, videos, bullet points, or information about your products and your services, all of these things are things that you provide. And when you truly have all of these things done in a really organized way, and you're in that organized place, then you're ready to work with a vendor. But an annual plan and how the tactics and techniques that you're asking for fit into that plan is a part of that organization, is a part of that readiness. So with all of that to say, how do you get a strategic plan for your marketing? Like, if that's not something that you're used to doing in an organization, how could you even start? Well, there's a lot of different models for that, and there are vendors and help for just that. And so one of those, the most current and the most common models are this. You hire a full-time person that is a marketing strategist. As an organization, you look at your budget and you say, you know what, we're going to stretch our marketing dollar to hire another person at a higher, at a strategy level, who's going to be full-time dedicated to just this. And they're going to be accountable to our marketing strategy. That may or may not be a possibility. A fractional chief marketing officer is somebody kind of on the leadership team in a percentage of time, who joins the leadership team, sets that strategy, and kind of like walks through with the rest of the marketing team. And then, of course, there's a planning consultant. This is the stuff that I've done before, which is where you hire somebody just to help you write an annual strategic plan. and they ask all the right questions and come to the table with a format and all of that. So that planning consultant is another path. All of those paths, just like that Venn diagram of the good, fast, and cheap, all of those paths have different pros and cons. An internal director is going to have full-time focus, huge product and industry knowledge, institutional memory, and be accountable to the results that they're driving. The con of that is it's the most expensive of those options. An internal director can get tunnel visioned over time, has to make a concentrated effort to innovate, and doesn't necessarily replace the execution employees or the vendor relationships. It's an added expense versus an amended expense. That fractional CMO could be a great option for you. Deep knowledge and experience. Typically, fractional CMOs have the most. Anybody at that leadership level who would take on that model has a much deeper knowledge and experience, operational understanding of the industry, and just a deep foundation in marketing in general, and is accountable to the results that they're driving. The con is, again, it's a large portion of the marketing budget. That's a experienced and fairly expensive individual. Shared focus, because they're fractional. They must make a concentrated effort to innovate, because anytime you've been doing the same thing for a very long time, that's part of what you do. And again, doesn't replace that execution employee or vendor. The planning consultant. Again, you're going to get deep knowledge and experience, a fresh understanding of the industry and products, which is really good. They bring their own system and process, and it is the lowest cost option. However, it's a limited time engagement. I mean, you're maybe talking about somebody for 3 or 4 weeks. They'll have shared focus with other things, is not accountable to the execution of that strategy. I can't tell you how many times it's probably close to 90% of the annual plans that I've been hired to write. Then the next year they hire again, and we just go back and look, and I say, well, how did it go? And they say, well, we didn't quite get to that. We didn't quite get to that. And we didn't quite get to that. And you realize that the plan just sat on a shelf for the year. Everybody's best intentions, right? Again, without somebody like really dedicated to marketing full time in an organization, it's really hard to dedicate the resource. And again, doesn't replace that execution employee or vendor. What I'm trying to kind of find a solution for is this. What is the middle way here? And I think that there is another model. I think that there's a planning plus model. I think that there's another way for a planning consultant to come in at a lower cost than a long-term internal director, than a full-time hire, but is accountable to the execution of the plan, has deep knowledge and experience, has a fresh understanding of the market, and provides professional development for the current execution team. Again, that would come with a limited time engagement and doesn't necessarily replace that employee. But I think coming with professional development for that execution employee kind of weans off the necessity for this kind of planning plus model. So I do think that there's another way. We're piloting some things with that, but we'll see how they go. But helping businesses with their strategic annual marketing plan has been really a joy and the pleasure of my career, and just watching them kind of like fizzle on the vine or die on the shelf after March is really heartbreaking. So I think that there's a way to address this. I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, but I think that there's a way. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear from you on that. So we'll do a quick TLDR, and then we'll take some questions because I've been talking for a while. So a quick too long didn't read. Key points to take away. Marketing is about more than designing a billboard. It's not just advertising. It's bigger than that. It's a key element in growing a business and recognizing new opportunity for that business. Strategic planning provides clarity to existing efforts and ensures the most bang for the buck from vendor relationships. And I do believe that there is a model that will help with planning and execution without committing to a full-time strategy employee. So that's what we had to share today. My contact information is right here if you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback. And I will now yield to our lovely host, Rachel, our lovely, beautiful, fabulous host, for any discussion or questions. You're muted, Rachel.
Well, all of those compliments to know, that went out to the universe. I just want to say that was such great information. I think my hand is cramping from all of the notes that I took while you were speaking. So that was amazing. And I've just messaged my team about our strategy sessions coming up here in January. So thank you for all of those great tips and reminders. So is anybody on here? Do you guys have any questions for Michelle? If not, I mean, I know that we've kept you here for almost 45 minutes, so we can let you go. But if you have questions, you probably have Michelle's information. If not, contact the office. We'll be happy to give it to you. And we hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I think this was very helpful.
Good. Good. Well, I'll stay on for a little bit in case anybody has any follow-up or any questions.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's funny. I always, know bits and pieces of that, but I don't put it into effect because it's not top of mind.
Right.
So you just made that all top of mind for me. Thank you. And I will actually, oh, here, let me stop the recording.